Part 2 of The Two Sisters by Jeannie Tarpley Fox. Original story, copyrighted material, all rights reserved. Illustrations by Copilot AI. When Alma's heavy old lady shoes squared with the great dark wooden staircase that had been specifically designed to be of extra width like the great hotels and homes of Europe, Alma ascended to visit the second and third floors with her feather duster to dust. Viola would send her, although she was not an efficient duster. Alma liked to imagine she was being lifted up just a little under her arms so that the burden of the stairs was not so tiring as she climbed. There were 10 bedrooms altogether, made up for visitors who would never come anymore. When Alma reached the second floor landing, she imagined that she would be lifted off her feet altogether so that she could float through the dimly lit hallways and empty bedrooms of the house, above the thread-worn carpet runners of the hallways. Relieved to be out of her sister's presence for a while, she imagined her legs and her heavy shoes dangling under her day dress. She felt weightless and soft as a ghost as she lifted her arms at the elbow to receive the help. She just knew that her feet were suspended some inches above the floor as she moved, floating around and through hallways and rooms with her feather duster, searching for cobwebs, of which many, if not most, would remain, for they would not be seen.
Spider sails, 15 nails, baby whales,
she would murmur to herself. Oftentimes her poems did not make sense, and she twirled and tickled her feather duster into dark corners of the rooms and halls like a magic wand as she floated. Once she got started, the dusting was a favorite chore. Her sister Viola had no criticisms, since she could no better see the remaining cobwebs than Alma. However, the daydreaming might come upon Elma during these times of the dusting upstairs, and twilight would arrive to find her motionless and staring out an upper floor window, or sitting in a chair by a window, gazing into the soft, cushiony, smoky black of night on the floor. Feather duster limp, but still in hand, Viola didn't bother to come and look. She was busy. The large house on Oak Street, now having fallen into a state of benign neglect, had been one of the grandest on the block in the town of Oakwood, Ohio. Dr. McGrand, a prominent surgeon, known to be a tad eccentric, lived there with his wife Bonnie and 2 children, Viola and Elma. The house far exceeded their needs, but Dr. McGrand enjoyed thinking big. Dr. McGrand had an impressively enormous personality, one that could fill a room and spill out onto the entire block. Too big for his poorly wife Bonnie. His spirit overpowered her. Bonnie was known to be a great beauty in her day, but being married and having children seemed to take the spirit out of her. She had taken to staying in her bed for days at a time, reading, sleeping, and could be found often not changing out of her nightclothes, but staring in a melancholy fashion out the window. Bonnie often became irritated with her husband's excesses, and ironically would complain, "You're a dreamer, Dr. McGrand, just a dreamer." And back she would go to her gardening or her books, or staring out her window. Since the family had led such a privileged life in the past, Viola, the older sister, had grown accustomed to the respectful and privileged treatment from the townsfolk, and from having been a teacher and having had a prominent father. She had not realized that times change and fold into the past, and that once her father and mother had passed away, time had passed too, and very few people from the village remembered her father, or her mother, or her. The girls had been born in the 1890s, the period of the Lizzie Borden scandal and the Depression. They had survived through 2 world wars, the Wright brothers, the Spanish flu, Model Ts, women's suffrage, speakeasies, the sinking of the Titanic, Bonnie and Clyde and Hitler. But time had indeed rolled forward. Dusty streets and horse carriages had been replaced with rubber and asphalt and automobiles. It had become a new modern generation with their own concerns of prestige and prominence. And although Viola did not know it, the townsfolk now thought of the two sisters that lived in the big old house not as distinguished citizens, but as two eccentric, maybe crazy ladies. They didn't remember the once prominent Dr. McGrand, but Viola fancied herself rather markedly distinguished from being from an established family, and conducted herself a bit ceremoniously, if not imperiously, when she went to town, head held high in her old-fashioned hat. When conducting business with the town shops, she never failed to mention her father. "Well, thank you very much indeed," she would say, "and if my father, Dr. McGrand, were here, I'm sure he would thank you too." Or, "Our father was Dr. McGrand. I'm sure you've heard of him." To which the townsfolk, those unfamiliar with the sisters or their father, would politely be at a loss for words, for they certainly had not ever heard of him. Dr. McGrand's once prominent and privileged memory had faded with the generations, and a new populace of its own important individuals had taken place. Those familiar with the sisters would humor Viola kindly and say things like, "Oh, of course, Miss Viola, God bless his memory." It was important to Viola to be admired and respected, and in her mind, yes, even a bit revered. Elma, for her part, did not care. Mrs. Bonnie McGrand had died at a relatively young age from an ailment of the brain, when her daughters had become young ladies. Seeing no further use of remaining at home, the small town stifling his enormous personality and huge spirit, Dr. McGrand called his housekeepers to the living room. "Things will be changing," he told them. "I no longer practice, and the world is changing. I see no further use remaining here." "Whatever will you do?" the anxious housekeepers had answered. They were afraid of losing their positions that they had held proudly for so many years in the McGrand home. "I'm going to travel," Dr. McGrand had announced, and leaving the care of the home and the two sisters in the quite capable hands of the ladies, Dr. McGrand went away to Europe. He wrote often, sending expensive gifts to the girls that were completely out of place for a small town in Ohio. But the girls were pleased to receive the exquisite, expensive bracelets and the fur coats that he sent. Life went on as normal for the girls, and their caretakers dealt with them responsibly and lovingly, as they always had. Dr. McGrand had passed away in Florence, Italy, while visiting and studying the walls and ceilings of one of the ornate and golden cathedrals there. His heart had been overwhelmed by the beauty, passion, and drama he was observing, and reaching out toward the ceiling, his heart had given way. The two sisters then had become heirs to one of the most prominent homes in Ohio.
"Oh, make yourself useful, sister!"
Viola snapped as she planted a huge ball of tangled yarn in Elma's lap. Elma dutifully began untangling the mass as Viola sat across from her and spun one end of the yarn over her arm.
"Spin, spin, and never stop. Soon it will be 7 o'clock.
Alma muttered to herself. The dusty grandfather clock correspondingly chimed that it was indeed 7 o'clock in the evening, and abruptly Viola stated,
"It's 7 o'clock. Time for dance skills."
And she put down her end of the yarn and crossed the room to grab a red feather boa that was sequestered away in an old spittoon, now used solely for decorative purposes. Winding the boa around her neck, she went to the Victrola and cranked it up.
Charleston, Charleston, made in Carolina, some dance, some prance. I'll say there's nothing funner than the Charleston, Charleston. Lord, how you can shuffle. Every step you do leads to something new. Man, I'm telling you, it's a lapazoo.
Elma sang along as she watched, still winding the yarn absent-mindedly. She loved the lyrics and could remember the lyrics to every song she'd ever heard. Songs were poetry. The music came over the horn of the Victrola as Viola's old lady's shoes obeyed the song, flicking and kicking and dipping her arm down to the rhythm, red feathers jumping now along, her white hair bobbling out of place and illuminated in the last few shafts of sunlight for the day. Hop, 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 swing, 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 clunk, clunk. Her shoes and her arms flung wildly in the air as Alma continued her untangling and took to murmuring for a while, thoroughly accustomed to her sister's abrupt changes in activity. Then Alma rose, and watching her sister joined in the dance on the sidelines, her old lady dress bouncing above her shoes. Viola, huffing and puffing from the exhilaration of the dance, proclaimed imperiously, "And now for Mr. Sousa!" as she changed the record on the Victrola to John Philip Sousa's Stars and Stripes. Alma scrambled for the American flag that was rolled up in the corner. "Are you ready for Mr. Sousa, sister? Shoulders back, head up, chin to the balcony, sister, chin to the balcony, and march," Viola commanded. Alma, fumbling, clumsily unfurled the flag and began to march and whip the heavy flag side to side with all her might to the music. Clump, 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 the sisters marched in place with their heavy shoes to the thrilling beat of Stripes and Stars. Alma whipping the flag side to side, Viola's arms and legs pumping violently, the bun of her hair positively disheveling. It was getting to the crescendo, the best part, the piccolos. Alma loved the piccolos, and Viola waggled her head appreciatively to the music of them as she lifted her knees high in unison with the music.
Let us all hail the flag with one accord. Let us cheer it with fervent elation. It's the flag of the martyrs gone before. It's the flag of flags, the banner of our nation. Alma sang out in soprano warble in unison with the music. Alma was fervently patriotic. She thought patriotism very poetic, and just as abruptly as the activity had started at the end of the march, it stopped with Viola's announcement, "It's time for soup, sister. You will be having some squash soup, will you not?" Viola went to the kitchen to stir the giant pot of soup that was bubbling there. Alma was a little tired of soup. She did not prefer it, and she was weary of Viola's love of squash and of their garden's propensity towards copious output of it, but knew it was futile to resist Viola's ideas. At least it was better than okra, a favorite of their mother's. At dinner that evening, the two ate separately, Viola in the formal dining room and Alma at the old laminated kitchen table in the corner by the back window. "Sister," Viola called from her place at the table, "I have decided. We need more chicken." She paused, and then, "I'm going to put Stella down tomorrow. We are out of meat and short on funds." Alma rose from her spot in the kitchen and stood in the entryway of the dining room at the end of the long dining table. "Stella? Why, Stella? Why not that mean rooster fella?" Stella was her favorite chicken. "Because Stella doesn't lay. She's good for nothing but looks, and she's our fattest one. Either you do it, or I'm going to." Viola set her mouth firmly, looking down. Alma panicked, stricken in her heart. Stella was hugely obese, and to Alma a beautiful chicken, a pet of hers. She knew that once Viola made up her mind, there was nothing to do or say about it. Viola, sensing Alma's shock, added, "If it bothers you so much, throw your cares on the altar of the Lord, sister. Throw it on the altar." Disappointed, stunned, but resigned, Alma resolved to do the deed herself. "I will do it, bless her breast. I trust that you would make a mess,"
Elma said. She didn't trust Viola not to do a clumsy job of it. Viola was very capable indeed, but not always as carefully skillful as Elma. Elma suspected she had inherited some of her father's surgical skill, for she had keen eyesight close up, delicate hands that could perform the most intricate of skills. Needlepoint, dried flower, and weed weavings were a specialty. She could just imagine her sister Viola hacking clumsily at her dear Stella's fat neck, not getting it right when only one careful strike was called for. She didn't want Stella to suffer. And then Elma came up with a plan. She could not bear to part with her favorite chicken. Times were hard everywhere, but you did not eat your friends. She would take Stella to a neighbor's backyard flock and release her. She would take the money she had saved over the years from the sale of her soaps and dried flower arrangements and go to the butcher's in town and buy a large chicken and tell Viola that she had done the deed. It would be a lie, but it would be a lie for the good. Elma did not believe in the black and white of the world. She liked to believe that the world was colored alternatively and that there were shades of good and bad. What she would be doing, Viola would think would be bad. Maybe God would think she was bad. Maybe Stella would think she was bad for abandoning her away from the home she knew. But she knew she couldn't kill Stella, much less eat her. You just don't eat friends. It would break her heart to even try. She knew what she had to do. End of part 2.